Let's take a look at solving proportions. A proportion is when you have two ratios or two fractions that are equal to each other. 2w over z. This is two different forms that you might see a ratio in. This is probably the more common form that most people end up working with because the two most common methods for solving out a proportion are making equivalent fractions and cross multiplication. If you haven't heard of cross multiplication, you might have also heard it under the name butterfly method, because when you do the multiplication across and you circle the things you're multiplying, it kind of turns into looking like a butterfly. So let's jump into the first example and see how we can solve it using both of these methods. Our first example is 4 over 3 is equal to 8 over x. First thing I see is it's very easy for us to turn a 4 into an 8 multiplying by 2. And since these are both fractions, we can use multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number to make equivalent fractions. So we multiply the numerator by 2, multiply the denominator by 2, x will be equal to 6. And that is the equivalent fraction method. It works really, really well when there's a clear number for us to multiply by to turn one of the numerators or denominators into the other numerator or denominator. Let's take a look at how we would do this with cross multiplication, or the butterfly method. 4 over 3 is equal to 8 over x. In the butterfly method, or cross multiplication, 3 times 8, so one of the numerators times one of the denominators, is the same thing as the other numerator times the other denominator. So 3 times 8 is 24. That is equal to 4 times x. Dividing both sides by 4, we get 6 is equal to x. And so we wound up with the same answer both ways. This is probably the more common way you're going to see proportions solved out because it works every time no matter what. But depending on what you're working with, it can take longer, so it is always good to have the equivalent fractions method in the back of your mind. Let's check out our second example. Our second example is 7 over n is equal to 8 over 7. So this is one where doing the equivalent fraction method doesn't really work because there's not a clear thing we can multiply 7 by to turn it into 8, or vice versa. I mean, you can multiply it by a fraction, but that's a bit convoluted. So instead, let's use the cross multiplication method. We know 7 times 7 is going to be equal to 8 times n. So 14/9 is equal to 8n. And dividing both sides by 8, we would have n is equal to 14/9 over 8, or 6 1/8. And that is the final answer for this proportion. For our third example, let's do something a little more complicated. 4 over m minus 8 is the same thing as 8 over 2. We're going to solve this one using both methods because we can use the equivalent fractions method. It very clearly we can multiply 8 times 2 to make, we can multiply 2 times 4 to make 8. So that means we can multiply this denominator times 2 to make 2. That means 2 times m minus 8 would make 2. Dividing both sides by 2, we have m minus 8 is equal to 1. Adding 8 to both sides, m is equal to 9. So that would be the solution for m in this proportion using the equivalent fractions method. Let's see what it looks like with our cross multiplication. So we have, what was the original one? Oh, 4 over m minus 8 is equal to 8 over 2. Cross multiplication, 4 times 2 is 8, and that's going to be equal to 8 times m minus 8. Dividing both sides by 8, we'll have 1 is equal to m minus 8. Add 8 to both sides, 9 is equal to m, and we wound up with the same answer, of course, for what m is equal to. Let's go ahead and plug it in just to show that it works. This would be 4 over 9 minus 8 is 1 is equal to 8 over 2, which makes sense. Multiplied by 2 makes 8, multiplied by 2 makes 2, so this is indeed a true statement, and we did find the value for m. Our fourth example is 4 over 9 is equal to r minus 3 over 6. This is one where it's not super clear what we would multiply a numerator or denominator by to change it to the other fraction, so let's use our cross multiplication. 4 times 6 is going to be 24, is equal to 9 times r minus 3. We could distribute the 9 onto the r and the 3, or we can just divide both sides by 9 right off the bat. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by 9 right off the bat. So those 9s will cancel out. We have r minus 3 is equal to 24 over 9, which, by the way, is going to be equal to 2 and 6/9, which is the same thing as 2 and 2/3. So we have r minus 3 is equal to 2 and 2/3. Adding 3 to both sides, r is equal to 5 and 2/3. And that will be the answer for what r is equal to in this proportion, 5 and 2/3. For our fifth example, we have n over n minus 3 is equal to 2 over 3. So once again, there's not a clear thing we can multiply the numerator and denominator by to make equivalent fractions, so let's use our cross multiplication. N times 3, so 3n is equal to 2 times n minus 3. Let's distribute our 2. 2n minus 6 is equal to 3n. Subtract 2n from both sides. N is equal to negative 6. And that is our solution for this proportion if we have negative 6 over negative 6 minus 3. This is the same thing as negative 6 over negative 6, negative 9. And dividing both the numerator and denominator by negative 3, this would turn into 2/3. So it is indeed the solution. In our final problem we'll address today, we have n minus 6 over n minus 7 is equal to 9 over 2. And yeah, there's not a clear thing to multiply by to make equivalent fractions, so let's use our cross multiplication. 2 times n minus 6, going across, is equal to 9 times n minus 7, going across here. Let's go ahead and distribute. 2n minus 12 is equal to 9n minus 63. And combine like terms. Subtract 2n from both sides. Negative 12 is equal to 7n minus 63. And then adding 63 to both sides, we get 51 is equal to 7n. Divide both sides by 7, and we have n is equal to 51 over 7, which is the same thing as 7 and 2/7. So to make this proportion work, the value of n needs to be 7 and 2/7. By the way, if you would like a video on how to do these conversions from a improper fraction to a mixed number, or how to do your division facts in such a way that your remainder is written as a fraction instead of a decimal, let me know in the comments below. I'm more than happy to make one. That's all I've got for you today. If you found this video to be helpful, consider liking and subscribing, and if you have a topic you would like for me to cover in the future, leave it down in the comments below. As always, have a fantastic day.